Hello and welcome back to the Talking Apron. I'm your host, Ann Bernardin, and I am back again to give you a little nutritional background on how adding more vegetables to your meals can add more days to your life in the future. I know that sounds a little bit outrageous, but vegetables, plants in general, are the best long-term medicine plan of action that there is. At least that's my belief, and you can do your research and find the studies that support that too. So, today we're diving into a vegetable that deserves a spot in every diabetic-friendly kitchen. But not just diabetics, everybody's kitchen, and that is the butternut squash. Now, this vibrant, nutrient-dense, packed squash is grouped with other squashes under the lit term of winter squashes. Well, what are winter squashes? Well, they're called that because they are left on the vine longer, so therefore they develop this skin or rind around them, which is protected. It protects the inside, I'll call it fruit, and that allows them to be stored for long periods of time without refrigeration. And in my past life of living in New England, a basement was the perfect place to store these homegrown squashes. We didn't have to wrap them or package them or cook them ahead of time. You just put them on a sill and let them stay there for months while you went along your business and used them when you needed to. Now, unlike summer squashes, such as zucchini or yellow squash, which have thin skins, and they are picked early and must be eaten shortly after harvesting, these winter squashes really surpass those summer squashes and have a deeper, richer kind of flavor. Now, what are some of the other winter squashes? Well, we have the butternut, which we'll be talking about today. There's acorn. Yes, spaghetti squash. If you've ever tried peeling spaghetti squash, you don't. You bake it in the shell. There is also delicata squash and a few others with names I don't quite know how to pronounce. So why is butternut squash a great addition to your vegetable staples? Well, like I said, when they are harvested at full maturity, meaning again, they stayed on the vine and ripened, they tend to be higher in carbohydrates. The sugar just gets to develop because carbohydrate, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, breaks down into glucose, has a lot of carbohydrates, but it also has great fiber and essential nutrients. And just so you know, the same is true of other vegetables. The longer that they stay on the vine or the plant, the more natural sugars or carbohydrates that break down into glucose, the more that is in them. Think green peppers stay on the vine to red peppers, much sweeter. Think tomatoes. Pick them too early and gas them, no flavor, not a high sugar content. Think ripened, sweetened tomato on the vine. Now, butternut squash is high in fiber, and as I said, vitamins and minerals, while it offers that naturally sweet kind of flavor, but without spiking your blood sugar levels, especially when consumed in moderation. And what I mean is, if you make a dish and you have 3 or 4 servings, well, and it's just butternut squash, well, yes, your blood sugar is going to rise. But if you have a meal that is mixed with other vegetables, proteins, etc., no, it's not going to spike you like a processed food will. So, nutritional value, rich in fiber. Well, how much? it has 6 to 7 grams of fiber per cup. That is really great. And what the fiber does, well, one, we know it's good for our gut, which also makes it good for our heart health, because, well, we can go into another nutrition class at another time, but just saying, the fiber, our nice gut buddies, will help slow down digestion, and they get fed with the fiber, and then all that luscious cholesterol that we're dropping with our weight loss is attaching itself to some of the fiber to leave the body, but also it slows down your digestion, which keeps you fuller longer, and then that's what prevents those blood sugar spikes. And that's what's called a low glycemic load. Because they contain the natural sugars or carbohydrates and the added fiber, that keeps that blood sugar balance in check. Now, what vitamins? Vitamin A. You know what vitamin A is. It's in carrots, so that nice orange color. And also vitamin C. And both of those are essential for immune health, skin, and eye health. Butternut squash also is a good source of potassium. And we know potassium supports our heart health and our muscle function. We always hear about magnesium for our muscles, but we don't hear about potassium. Well, maybe we do because people eat bananas for more potassium. But there's actually more potassium sometimes in cauliflower than there is in bananas. So, just saying. Now, it also contains antioxidants. And antioxidants is really important because that's also a heart health thing. It's also a help prevent diabetes because it fights inflammation. And that is the word of the day. Our body is inflamed and we're getting all sorts of things happening. But high inflammation prevents our insulin from working correctly, and that is so crucial for managing your blood sugar and keeping track if you're someone with diabetes or wants to prevent diabetes. Now, butternut squash is very versatile to cook, so it makes it really fun to be able to roast, make soups, even making some desserts. I substitute butternut squash for pumpkin and make a cheesecake. We're not going to talk about that today. I won't be giving that recipe. But now we know why butternut squash is so great. So let's talk about a couple ways to prepare them. I'm going to be giving you 3 delicious recipes. Now you can find these online. Just research. First one's going to be butternut cream soup, and you'll be able to find a couple variations. But what we're going to start with is a medium head of butternut squash. Yes, this is a little labor intensive, again, because it has that thick skin peeling. Some people find it easier to cut into rounds about this thick. If you can't see it, it's about 1 inch. And then use a vegetable peeler to get a little bit closer. Other people keep it whole. But you're going to be peeling it. Cut it in half first, seed out the inside. Slice it up into good sizes. You'll then peel it and then chop it into some nice quarters, cubes, all right? You'll be chopping up a small onion, add garlic if you like garlic. I don't. You'll be adding to the pan and getting warm a little bit of olive oil. Then you're going to keep on the side 4 cups of low sodium vegetable broth. We're going to add just a small amount of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and then for creaminess, you can either add a half a cup of unsweetened coconut milk, a half a cup of cream, or if you want it a little bit less fat intense, you can use a half a cup of unsweetened almond milk. and then you're going to add your salt and pepper to taste. All right, so how are we going to put this in the pan? As I said, you've got your oil going. You'll put it in a pot, not a saute pan. Put it in a large pot over medium heat, not high heat. We do not want to burn those onions. You're going to saute the onion and garlic until they're fragrant, until they start steaming, and until they get a little bit translucent. Then you're going to add in that cubed butternut squash. You're going to stir that around a little bit just to have the heat onto that butternut squash. But then you're going to go ahead and add the broth and all the spices. You're going to bring it to a boil, but not one of those hard boils like you want for pasta. Just bring it to a boil, and then you're going to reduce it to simmer, where it's still cooking. It's still doing that small rolling kind of, it's not a hard big bubble boil. It's just that simmering kind of cooking. You're going to have a lid on it, and you are going to simmer for about 20 minutes until the squash is tender. And that's fork tender. Stick the fork in and it goes through easily. That's it. That's cooked. You'll remove it from the heat. You're going to either, if you want to keep it in chunks, you'll add the coconut milk, or you'll get your immersion blender, blend up all the squash first. That helps remove some of the heat, so you're not going to be boiling the cream. You're going to be using your immersion blender, and then you're going to be adding in that coconut milk or the cream or the almond milk, and you'll salt and pepper to taste, and you are ready to go with a lovely bowl of butternut cream soup. Now the next one is a butternut squash and chickpea curry. Okay, I've been watching this British Netflix show. It's a home cook competition, and it's based in England. And I've been seeing lots of curries, and it gave me this idea that I need to show this. So this is a hearty curry, and it's full of warming spices, and it is also adds more protein than the cream butternut squash soup, because the chickpeas have protein in them. Same recipe. You have your butternut squash, peel, seeded, diced, small onion, cloves of garlic. You can add a little bit more garlic if you want it a little bit spicier. But here's where the shift comes. An inch piece of ginger that's grated. Peel it, then grate it. 1 can of chickpeas, and you are going to drain them and rinse them. You're also going to add a can of finely diced tomatoes, and you're going to be adding a can of coconut milk. Now, the coconut milk can either be light or it can be the full fat, depending upon what your health requirements are. And then you're going to be putting in a nice tablespoon of curry powder, a teaspoon of turmeric, half teaspoon of cumin, half teaspoon of paprika, and a cup of vegetable broth. Then we're also have a handful of fresh spinach on the side. That's optional, and that's for the last minute. So how to cook this? Well, it's the same way. We're going to be sauteing the onion, the garlic, the ginger. Again, you're smelling until it's fragrant. We're going to add all those lovely spices. We're going to toss in the squash, the chickpeas, the diced tomatoes, and the broth, and we're going to simmer for 15 minutes. We're going to stir in the coconut milk. Here's a little bit of the shift. We are going to put that lid on, and we're going to simmer another 10 minutes so that squash is fully cooked. Then at the last minute, once the squash is done, you can throw in the spinach if you want to add that green to your curry. And you can either serve it over quinoa, cauliflower rice, regular rice, and you can season with salt and pepper. Now again, this dish is fabulous because it's high in fiber, it has more protein, and it has fat, and that slows down the carbohydrate absorption or digestion, and that's because those other macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrates are macronutrients. So there you have it. Now, let me give you one more way you can substitute, and that is by adding tofu. If you don't care for chickpeas, just throw in the tofu. And you'll be putting that in before you put in the squash because you want to absorb the onion flavor and all those spices and kind of saturate that tofu for a little bit before you put in the butternut squash and the fluid. All right, this third recipe is a set it and forget it. This is just baked butternut squash, and we're going to put some herbs and some Parmesan cheese on at the end, and it is a perfect side dish for any meal. We're doing the same thing. 1 medium butternut squash. We're going to be peeling it, we're seeding it, we're slicing it into cubes, but this is where it shifts. Now, how I do my roasting meals or side dishes is either I put it in a bowl or I put the butternut squash cubed in a plastic bag. And then I add the tablespoon of olive oil, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, some half teaspoon of thyme, 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, salt and pepper, and I shake that bag and kind of massage it so you can have it fully mixed well. Now we're preheating our oven to 400. We're going to put everything in. That's one way. Or you can leave the Parmesan cheese for the end. We're going to spread it evenly on a baking sheet. And generally what I do is I do put down a piece of parchment paper. I'm going to spread it out evenly. Bake it for 25 to 30 minutes until golden brown. It gets nice and not quite charred, like sweet potatoes have a crunchy char on it, but it will be baked through. And then if you want to have the Parmesan cheese on the end, you can put it in a serving dish and put your 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese on the top at the end when you're ready to serve. Some people like to add a little bit of green chive or maybe some parsley for added color and for more biodiversity when you're adding more vegetables or herbs to your diet. Now, roasting will bring out the natural sweetness without all that added sugar, and pairing it with a protein, like perhaps you're having grilled chicken or having some fish, again, this will help balance your meal. All right, 3 recipes for how to utilize butternut squash, and I know you can steam it, mash it, and have some type of butternut squash mash, but I wanted to give you 3 other types of recipes you can use. And go ahead and look online. There are so many variations with herbs and flavors that you can use, but no, it's the same recipe. Peel, seed, cube, oil, onion, garlic, and then that's where the shift comes in. So you can get good at making multiple different ways of cooking butternut squash without having to reinvent the wheel for every single recipe. Butternut squash is not only nutritious, but as I said, it's incredibly versatile. So whether you blend it into that soup, whether you make that hearty curry, or you roast it to perfection, try these recipes, enjoy their health benefits. while keeping blood sugar in check, while keeping your gut happy, while keeping your health happy, while keeping your vision long term. So that's it for today's episode. Now, if you're wanting to join a Facebook community that's in the conversation, that wants to support your own personal long-term health, that wants to prevent diseases by making small changes in habits and how you eat, how you handle stress, how you sleep, that maybe it gives you hope for a different kind of aging future, find the link for the Talking Apron community called Health, Habits, and Hope in the description for this podcast. I so appreciate you visiting today and listening. I wish you wellness, and we'll see you next time on the Talking Apron.